Throughout the pattern, the instructions call for a make one stitch. In almost all cases, this is a make one known as a make one open, and that's described in another video which shows how to do the standard motif. However, in this video, I'm going to show you an alternate to the make one called make one left that's used in row 29, and it's also used in row 66. The reason we use a make one left on those two rows is that because of the nature of where they exist, they tend to create a hole in the fabric that is undesirable for this hat. So in those two rounds, we use the make one left, which I will show you now. I will start by using this swatch, and it's as if we were at the last round of stockinette stitch before the actual spiral pattern begins. It's in that first round of the pattern that we use the make one left instead of the make one open as part of the motif. But it is part of the motif. It's the start of the use of the motif. So for the swatch, I'll demonstrate it as part of the motif. And as you know, having watched the previous video, the motif begins with knit two together. Then there are purl 3, 1, 2, 3, and then the make one. In round 29, as I said, the make one called for is a make one left. However, just to demonstrate the reason we don't use that, I'm going to do a make one open right here, which is what is done in almost every other case throughout the garment. So there's the make one open as I described in the motif video. I will knit one in between the motifs, and now I'll do the motif the way it's described for round 29. Knit two together, knit purl 3, and now I'm going to make one left. In order to make one left, you raise this thread that goes between the two stitches, and you place it on the left needle, and you place it in such a way that the needle enters from the front and goes to the back, and then you put the yarn in back. With the yarn in back, you then knit into the back of that stitch. Notice it can be difficult to get the needle in there. Not too difficult, see I did it right there, but if you really struggle with it, you can also put it in this way and then bring the other needle underneath and up through, and that will position the needle properly as well. We then knit that through the back of that stitch, and as you finish the stitch, you'll notice that that thread we're knitting into is now crossed, and it is that cross from the right, it leans to the left, that's why it's called a make one left. We'll knit one stitch between motifs, and I'll show that one more time. Knit two together, purl 3, and make one left. Make one left. I'll raise the stitch. It's easiest to raise it with the right needle and place it on the left needle. Place it such that the left needle goes from the front of the stitch to the back, in the front and out the back. And then we knit that stitch into the back. Again, I'm going to put it in the front and then bring the other one underneath and up through, and that places the right needle in the back of the stitch, and we're ready to knit through the back. And that completes the make one left. I'll do one more knit to finish the end of the swatch. Now, since the swatch is knitted in the flat and the hat is knitted in the round, I'm just going to pull the needle through as if I've knitted all the way around a round garment. And I'm going to pick up the yarn loosely from behind and pretend I've knitted all the way around, and I'm coming at it again from the right side, still knitting on the right side. So I'll begin the swatch with a knit 1, and then I'll begin the motif at, no, I guess I'd knit 2, huh? Which is it? No, I knit 1. All right, I'll knit 1 and then I'll begin the motif. And now, because it's the equivalent of row 30, I'm going to do the regular motif. Knit 2 together, purl 3, make 1, and this time it's the make 1 open. We go, as I showed you before, we go up through the stitch below, grab that yarn, swing around to the front, and go back through again, grabbing the other thread, and that's the one we do the make 1 in. And that's the way it looks throughout most of the rest of the hat. However, you'll notice that because we did make 1 left in the row below, oops, that was supposed to be the knit 2 together of the knit of the next motif. So I backed up, now knit 2 together, and you'll see that because we did the make 1 left in the row below, the make 1 open is going to be a little bit tougher. There's the purl 3 for the motif, and now we want the make 1 open, but it is really not easy to see where you're going to get it. You actually bring the needle up through on top of the cross, back through the needle, back through the stitch, around, down through again, grabbing that thread right there. And that's where you knit the stitch. I didn't bother to place it on the needle, that's not necessary. I'll knit 1 in between the 2 motifs and do that once again. Knit 2 together. Purl 3. And make 1 open, and again, because the stitch below was a make 1 left, it's a little trickier. You still bring it up from underneath in the stitch below, which is a stitch with a tight cross. Bring it up through the stitch, around, back down in, and that grabs the thread that you want to knit through, just like that. And then I'll knit 2 to finish the swatch. Now, if you didn't do the make 1 left, this is what your stitch would look like. See the hole? That hole would appear here and on every other end of the motif, all along the bottom row of the pattern, but it never appears anywhere else because of the nature of putting it above a make 1. So as you see here, the same make 1 open did not make a hole because it was knitted into the stitch that was a make 1 left below, not the stitch that was a regular knit stitch. So you want to avoid these holes. You use a make 1 left in round 29. Round 30 may be one of the more difficult rounds because it is hard to get exactly the right place in those make 1 lefts to make your make 1 open. but from then on, it's a breeze.